Welcome to this week's edition of the Construction CPA's Coffee Cafe. I am the Construction CPA, Lisa Raish. We are dropping the hammer on cash flow problems so you can build things that matter. And of course, I probably need this to make it sound a little bit better. Sorry about that. All right, so this week's topic, this is going to be the 8th and final one in our cash flow series. So today we're going to be talking about using financing strategically and not desperately. So I see it too often, but a lot of times, not just in construction, but in business in general, you wait until you need the financing, and it's kind of that last resort thing. You turn to it right at the end when you've got nothing else. And when you're scrambling, when your cash is running out, it's honestly the hardest time to get any kind of financing. So while you don't want to be dependent all the time on financing, it can be used strategically in your business as a real tool. And so that's what we really want to talk about today is using it as a tool like anything else you're going to use in your business, and not just out of desperation. So today we'll give you 3 or 4 tips that you can start to utilize pretty much instantaneously in your business. And again, let's see you use the debt or the financing that you are going to get and just use it in a wise way to help you strengthen and grow your businesses. So why does it matter, right? Financing is not a bad thing when you use it correctly. Unfortunately, too often we see financing isn't used properly. It's people spend it, they don't spend it wisely, they don't use it, again, as just another tool in the toolbox. And therefore, that's when it becomes detrimental and people lose their businesses, et cetera. So we really want to see you support the growth of your business. And then just in some cases, especially in construction, when cash flow can be so kind of hilly, right? Let's just see if we can smooth it just a little by utilizing the financing that you could potentially get in your business. Like with anything else, if you have bad cash flow, let's call it bad cash flow genes, maybe that's not a great term, but you know what I'm talking about. If you don't have good cash flow habits, then yes, more financing is super dangerous. So again, let's talk about ways to utilize that cash flow and that financing in a proper way so it can be just another tool in the tool belt, in the toolbox, etc. So, and again, the best time to get that financing is when you do not need it. It is incredibly hard to get financing when you are desperate to, in fact, get the financing. So what are some of the things that you can do today or even next week in your business to utilize your debt appropriately? So first tip, secure that line of credit before you need it, right? Make sure you establish a relationship with someone at the bank that you're doing business with. It is a lot easier to ask for financing at a bank where they know who you are, right? So, and again, you're going to do this when things are going well. So you may not need that line of credit today, but if you do in 8 months from now, it's there and it's ready to go. Again, the other situation you run into with debt and looking for lines of credit, et cetera, if you are desperate for it, you're not going to be able to, even if you do have a good relationship with the bank, the ability to get a line of credit within days doesn't happen. So in most cases, it does take a little bit of time in order to get that. So go out and get that when things are going well. And you're going to use that line of credit to cover short-term gaps in your cash flow. You're not you just want to fill the little hole in the boat. If there's a gaping hole in the boat, that line of credit is not going to fix it. So again, you're just trying to smooth out that cash flow. I talk about that kind of the EKG. We don't want to be like beep, 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 beep. So you're not going to get it flat, but if you can just smooth it out just a little bit, again, it won't be as dramatic. So having that credit available gives you the flexibility that if you in fact need it in order to, let's say, for example, make payroll on Friday, you can tap that line of credit and be able to make your payroll payment. You're not running off to the bank and trying to beg for money, which you would not necessarily get right away. So again, have it available and it gives you that flexibility. So number 2, match your financing to the expense, right? So if you're and so what do I mean by that? So if you're using that short-term financing, and when I say short-term, I'm typically saying that line of credit. That line of credit is for short-term needs. That means payroll gaps. I can't make payroll on Friday. I expected to receive this payment from a customer this week, but we're going to get it next week. So again, I need to make payroll on Friday, so I will tap the line of credit in order to make payroll. But when that receivable comes in next week, I'm just going back and I'm repaying that line of credit, right? So we're just spreading it out just a little bit. Again, we're not leaving large draws on the line of credit for extended periods of time. We're just trying to meet that gap, right? We're just trying to make the gap a little bit smaller and get you over that hump. Now, if you are going to get long-term financing, right, that's what you're going to do. For example, you're buying a piece of equipment. So you're going to get a fixed rate, fixed monthly payment loan for that piece of equipment. You're going to use that, and that's on your long-term assets, right? So those are two different types of financing. And so you want to match it to the type of expense that you're looking to cover. So again, the length of time on the financing is going to matter depending on the type of expense you have. So if you're just trying to cover, again, that short term, I need to pay the large material vendor this week, but I don't expect to receive that additional receivable payment until next week, I'm going to use that short term. But if I'm going to go out there and I'm buying a large backhoe and I'm spending $100,000 on it, I'm going to finance that with some sort of fixed monthly payment, fixed rate, fixed long-term financing, typically 5 years, 7 years, etc. So again, you want to match it with the life of the expense. And so that's what we mean by that. Is it going to be like just covering a short-term item, or is it something that you're going to have for a long period of time, and therefore you want to go with something long-term? So next, tip number 3, you want to compare your costs and your terms very carefully. So, all debt, all financing is not created equal. So don't just look at the interest rate. You want to look at things like, are there fees? Are there annual fees? What are the repayment terms? If you have repayment terms and it's a fixed type of repayment, are you able to pay it off early, right? Is there early payment penalties? Do you have the type of line of credit where you might actually have to, quote unquote, pay it off every year? And if you can't, right? So then if you can't pay it off every year, what are your options? So you want to make sure you understand what is actually happening, because that will ultimately impact your cash flow, right? So it's not just a one and done or a one size fits all. You want to really look at what you need in your business, and do the terms of that agreement actually align with what it is that you're looking to do. And explore multiple options. So there are bank loans. Sometimes there's equipment financing. So if you finance directly through the equipment companies, sometimes there are, we'll call it deals on the financing, on the interest rate, the term. You might be able to stretch it out for a longer payment of time. Are you doing something like an SBA loan? Are you doing some sort of type of, I'll call it more of a private kind of financing, where you're getting financing maybe from someone that you know? Again, those are things that you can use. There are multiple things to look at. It's not just, again, one and done. Look for the best thing for you. Again, the cheapest looking item is not always the best fit for you. So make sure you understand all of the terms and which is really the best fit for your business. Tip number 4, do not rely upon financing to cover bad cash flow habits. This is unfortunately one of those things we see far too often. Borrow on that line of credit, never pay it back, and now you constantly have a line of credit. So again, short-term line of credit, short-term expenses, long-term debt, you're buying an asset, etc. So what does that mean? You want to use your financing as a tool and not a crutch. If you're using it as a crutch in your business, then you have probably far larger issues, and that one particular item won't necessarily fix it. It will, again, probably, plug the hole for a short period, but again, the hole starts to gush again. So we want to use it as a tool, right? Something that you can go to get you over that hump of that cash flow challenge. But then again, you pay it off. Or if you're buying an asset, you're spreading it out over the life of, over 5 or 6 or 7 years, depending on what you've acquired. So you have to fix the underlying cash flow problems, right? So if you have issues with collections, then you need to look at your collections process. If you are not job costing appropriately, you're not bidding appropriately, you're not tracking the job costing during the project, right? That's another problem. Those are all cash flow problems that honestly a short-term line of credit will not fix. Again, it might mask it for a short period of time. So financing really should be used as a growth tool because if for a short period of time, it will absolutely mask your problems until something else comes up down the road and you will see that you actually have a much worse problem. So again, use that financing as a tool in your business and not as a way that you do business. So let's just recap quickly what we talked about. So first, secure your credit early. Do not wait until you need it. You want to match the financing to the expenses. Short-term financing, short-term expenses, long-term financing. Typically, you're going to be financing an asset, piece of equipment, et cetera, that you've purchased. Make sure you are comparing the terms of the notes, the costs associated with that, because like anything else, not all debt is created equally. You want to make sure that you understand exactly what you're getting into. And the last thing is do not use your debt to cover bad habits because it will absolutely mask your bad habits for a period. And then unfortunately, the bad habits just come right back up and you can see them very clearly. And you're just back into the same situation that you were in previously. So financing is not the enemy. It's how you use it, when you use it. Be strategic about how you're using that financing, and you can actually protect your business. Really, it is a tool to be used and to be used wisely, of course. So I'd love to hear from you guys. Like, what type of financing have you used in your business before? Again, we have, what are the terms? Where have you run into issues with bad terms? We see sometimes people are using almost those kind of payday types of loans, right? Are you using those types of things? If you have, I'd love to hear how it went for you, whether it was a good experience or a bad experience. And again, we always love to hear from you. We would love you to follow us here on Facebook. We're also on YouTube and Instagram, and on all three, we are at the Construction CPA. I look forward to seeing you here every week. Have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you next week.